Ethereum just had a week that shows you how macro pressure can hit an asset even when the chart looks stable on the surface. This is a clean read on how liquidity, flows, and positioning shifted underneath the market. Once you see the signals, the whole picture becomes a lot clearer. Today, we're breaking down Ethereum's last 7 days. ETF outflows continued, liquidity tightened, macro conditions stayed heavy, and risk appetite across the market pulled back. At the same time, long-term structure held firm, staking remained strong, and developer activity stayed consistent. This week showed you exactly how Ethereum reacts when macro takes control, and why the price action does not tell the full story. Ethereum's market structure weakened on the surface, but stayed solid underneath. Price pulled back, but the real move was in positioning. Futures open interest cooled, funding normalized, traders stepped back. This was a positioning reset. While short-term traders reduced risk, long-term structure stayed intact. Staking participation remained high, developer activity did not slow, and long-term holders did not flinch. This was not driven by fear, but by tightening macro conditions. Ethereum didn't lose strength, liquidity did. ETF flows stayed negative. We saw steady outflows across multiple issuers. We saw consistent pressure from institutions, reducing exposure in a tightening environment. At the same time, broader crypto funds saw meaningful outflows, presenting a liquidity problem. Short-term flows leaned negative, however long-term accumulation stayed intact. This is the kind of divergence that tells you macro is in control. ETF outflows continued even as long-term structure held steady, which is risk management in a hot inflation market. Institutions are not reacting to charts, they're reacting to yields, inflation, and liquidity. And Ethereum's behavior lined up perfectly with those signals. This week was all about macro alignment. And on the tech side, Ethereum's fundamentals did not change. Staking stayed strong, security remained high, developer activity stayed consistent, and long-term holder supply remained stable. Sentiment shifted as analysts recognized the disconnect between short-term pressure and long-term strength. Ethereum didn't weaken, but the environment around it definitely tightened. This is the difference between price action and structure. Ethereum did not rally this week, but it definitely strengthened. The next move depends on 3 things: how liquidity behaves as current macro pressure stays elevated, how ETF flows respond to shifting rate expectations, and how risk appetite evolves as yields move. If liquidity loosens, Ethereum responds fast. And if liquidity stays tight, Ethereum consolidates until the next macro opens. Either way, this week gave you a clear read on what matters next. Now, if you want a clean framework for reading weeks like this without getting lost in the noise, it's exactly why I wrote Understanding Crypto, a clear guide for new investors. It breaks down how flows, structure, and sentiment all fit together so weeks like this stop feeling random. And I'll put a link in the description. If this helped you see Ethereum's week more clearly, like the video and drop a comment telling me which part of the story stood out to you the most. Was it the ETF flows, the liquidity pressure, the rate outlook, or the long-term structure? Your take helps shape what I cover next. So please share this with someone who's trying to understand how macro actually drives crypto. Most people see the price. You're seeing the structure. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next breakdown. Stay locked.